So,
All right.
yeah, so let's do it. So, welcome, Lynn Ruth Miller.
Thank you
Um,
very much. That's so kind of you. And so
no,
kind of you to say, I'm never sure when I go on stage that it's going to click.
hmm
I'm never sure, but fortunately, it usually does.
I think that's everyone, isn't it? Well, actually, no, I'm the opposite. My problem is I get up on stage being like, "Oh, they're gonna love this," and then when they don't necessarily, if they don't, then I'm just like triggered, and I'm like, "Oh no."
And then what happens is it affects how you continue your set.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yep,
mustn't do that. What you need to do is if you're not connecting, stop and
yeah.
start talking to the audience, and in your head think of something new to talk about, or talk to the audience about what you just said. Very often we go so fast they don't know they're supposed to laugh.
Is like, what are the things that you didn't look at in life, or you ignored them and thought they would go away, that kind of like blew up in your face a bit. So that's, I think that's what I spend most of my time thinking
But
was
I'm reading a book about how I'm reading a book called the Second Wind, about how, as somebody who's 86, I have a whole different take
yeah,
on the
yeah,
quality of life. And I
exactly.
hadn't even thought about that. I mean, I just, you just sort of drift into it.
I mean, you started stand up at 70,
That's right.
right? So before that,
I haven't had a real job since I was 36 because I had a physical breakdown and I was sick for 10 years. And I am legally disabled in the United States. I've never bothered over here, but I am legally disabled.
you've never bothered over here. What, like the perks here weren't that
No,
good?
no, no. It's what it gives you privileges. If you drive, it's really a good thing because you can park everywhere.
Yeah.
But uh so when before comedy, I
Wait,
have
wait,
to
wait.
I,
What about the physical breakdown? What was that? Stress.
my body, no, no, it was because I had an eating disorder. I had anorexia.
Right. Okay.
And I fought to conquer it. I conquered it without any medical help or any psychological help. I conquered
Wow.
it all by myself, which is unique. And
Yeah.
I did it because once someone gave it a name, once I knew what it was, because when I got it, nobody nobody knew about it. It was 19 oh I had it. Oh, I had it since 1949,
Yeah.
1950.
Yeah.
So nobody knew what it was. And then during my first marriage, I was stuffing and I was binging and starving.
Yeah.
And the doctor said, there's a name for what you've got. And in the 50s, it was not cool to go to a psychiatrist.
I
That
don't know that it's cool now.
Yeah, well,
Maybe it just seems cool because yeah,
counseling. Oh,
yeah.
oh,
Maybe it only seems cool because comedians are so like always
they're
talk
so
about it.
nuts. Yeah, we all do. But it was awful. It
Mm.
was only loonies did that.
Yeah.
So I determined that I was not going to allow that to happen. So I did. I was not going to allow my this psychological thing to control me. So I did what Weight Watchers was doing at the time. I created a rigid routine around food,
Right. Yep.
and I forced myself to eat.
Yep.
And I also, because I also had bulimia,
Yep.
I also went shopping on Thursdays. I will, that was the advantage of a car. I can't do it now. I
Right.
went shopping on Thursdays. If I had a bulimic, because when you're anorexic and bulimic, even though it sounds like you're depriving yourself of food, the terror of my life was not to have anything in that refrigerator.
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
you're very addicted to food, just
Yep.
food.
Right.
And it takes your mind off all the things you failed at. It's a misdirection. It's changing. You're not thinking about all the crap you're not dealing with. You're thinking about, do I eat or don't I eat?
Right.
So I did this. I was absolutely determined not to have this illness.
Yeah.
So I did Weight Watchers in order to control overeaters. They have you do a ritual before you eat, which is set the table, put out the flowers, light the candle, for years. Oh, years.
Yeah.
Until even now, I have a little bit of a ritual, but it's not as bad.
Yeah, I think the point of that is to slow you down if you're in a state of urgency.
By that time, you're in control again.
Right. Yeah, like the child in you has calmed down a bit.
And it worked, but in a backhanded way, because I never really lost the addiction to food, the control over what I was eating. And so I thought I was well, but listen, it wasn't fast. It was, oh God, I thought I was well after I went to Stanford. So by
Yep.
the time I was 30, I thought I was well.
Mhm.
Remember, I had it from the time I was about 16.
Yep.
I thought I was well, but I was not. I
Oh,
would often, what I called, fall from grace. I
yep.
would have a huge bulimic episode.
Yep.
And then I would do what anorexics do. I wouldn't eat for a week.
Well, hang on. Surely the language of fall from grace is what perpetuates a continuation of the illness. Because if you're saying this is a mistake, or this is an impurity, or this is a slip up, then you're punishing yourself for it,
Oh,
which
I hated
restarts the
myself.
cycle, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
From the time I was 16 until I was 30.
Yeah.
Then, but I thought I had it under control by the time I went to Stanford. So that was when I was 30. But I did not. And I would have these falls from grace and then the anorexia. So I would do the same thing,
Yeah.
just not as often.
Right.
What would happen is I'd have periods where it looked like I was eating normally, but I wasn't. I
Right.
was weighing my food. I was very in control of the food.
Yeah.
Then I believe that that lasted until I started comedy. I do not believe that I conquered the eating disorder until I started comedy when I was 70. But when I was 36, anorexics don't understand that. You destroy your body.
Right.
So what happened is when I was 36, my digestive system stopped working, just
Wow.
like that.
Yep.
I had continual diarrhea, but I mean continual diarrhea. What I remember most is tragedy. It
Yeah.
was, and I was at the same time teaching university, and I was determined, and my job was precarious. So I went to school with this, living in poverty housing. My father was a millionaire. And the dean called me and he said, if we give you the raise that Ohio says we have to give you, Ray Henry, another English teacher, will not be able to get his raise, not his salary, his raise,
What?
and he has two children. And I said, okay. So now I'm still living on a poverty income, even though I am hired. I am not, and I've gone to school deliberately so that I would be able to support myself.
Yep.
Because after my second marriage, I realized no man is going to support me. I'm going to have to do it myself.
Yep.
And I couldn't get a job because in those days, a woman that's 30, you don't hire.
Right.
She's going to get married tomorrow. She's going to get pregnant. You don't. And
Right.
here I am with all these credentials and cannot get a job. And I'm teaching, which I didn't want to do.
Yep.
And then I realized that I was not going to get tenure because Ray Henry, who was
Ah.
tenure department, voted against me.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
So my job, I was not being paid fairly. I was not being paid enough. I
Yeah.
couldn't live on it. It was the only job I could get. I took all the money I saved and I moved into this home and I couldn't afford to fix it. And it
Right.
wasn't working. Nothing worked. It had leaks. The windows didn't shut. The heat didn't work. So, and that was when my body stopped functioning.
Right.
And they did an x-ray and discovered that I had a really bad case of osteoporosis. As a matter of fact, that case of osteoporosis at that time was the worst case they recorded in the history of the United States.
At 36.
Yes.
Wow.
So I was in the doctor's office reading Time magazine, which is a magazine I don't read very often, and and trying to control my sphincter muscle.
Yeah.
And I saw that there was this guy whose name was Frederick Barter, who was conducting a study on early onset osteoporosis. And it was at the National Institutes of Health. The National Institutes of Health is the experimental center of the United States. That's where they send people who are terminally ill.
Yep.
So I wrote him a letter And he wrote back and said, get your doctor to send x-rays. And
Yep.
my x-rays, because at that time they didn't have bone scans,
Yep.
showed no bones at all.
What?
That's right. Which I thought was a joke because I said, I'm standing.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
so he sent back a letter by return mail. He said, come. But then when I realized what it was a 6-week study, and I was in the midst of my semester. And remember, my job was in jeopardy,
Yep.
and there was this tenure business.
Yep.
I was not going to miss a day of work. So I wrote him back and I said, I'd love to do it, but I've got a job and I can't. And this is my only means of feeding myself.
Yep.
And I need you to know, and it's very important that people know, that I do not take money from others. So now I then get a call from the dean, and the dean says, sorry, you didn't get tenure. Your salary is not going to go up. They still are not paying me what they're supposed to be paying me.
Wow.
Which is literally saying you're stuck in poverty for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And then I said to him, he said, you've got to come and appeal. And I said, I can't. I'm going to the bathroom all the time. I cannot leave the toilet. And then I wrote Dr. Barter. I remember it so clearly. It was in December. And I said, I'll come.
Do you think that's in some ways a blessing? Not in any ways a blessing, but do you think in some ways by
Well, it was an absolute
because you
blessing.
just go, I've got nothing to lose now. I can walk out of here.
No, I had everything. I didn't know what to do. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do. I gave one of my students, whose name was Mary Pat,
Mm.
she took the cat. My parents, they did drive me to the airport.
Yeah.
I know I didn't. They did.
Yeah.
My mother was very angry because she said I was going to a charity hospital, and the whole time I was in the hospital, which was a hell of a lot longer than what they expected, they thought I had no family, and I went there thinking I was dying,
Right.
and I did not want to die.
Yeah.
I I'm a writer. I was there for 4 months. And do you remember I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, Dopamine? Do you remember about dopamine? They gave it to cerebral palsy people.
No.
You- yeah, when it was invented, the guy in the next room was one of the trials.
Right. Wow.
It stopped the cerebral palsy. Dopamine, it was called. Um, um, Robin Williams was in the movie.
As a doctor,
Yes.
as a friendly doctor, like Patch something.
No, I don't know. It was I didn't see
Wait,
the
is he
movie.
a doctor of psychology or is he like a friendly doctor?
No, no, no. Robin Williams was in it. I don't know what he was in it,
Okay.
but it was this movie, Oliver Sacks. It was based on the Oliver Sacks book, and it was about this dopamine and what it did to people because it was a miracle drug, but it didn't last. And anyway, so he got that one while they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me.
Yep.
And at the end of 4 months, where they were no closer to figuring it out, nothing got better. I said to them, I said to the nurse, and her name was Arlene, and I said, I'm going back home. And she said, if you go home, you will die because your bones are so thin that if you stand in a wind, you'll start breaking, your bones will break and they won't be able to support your life, your intestines and things like that.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I'd rather die at home with my cat. I don't want to stay here anymore.
Yeah.
And they put me in an ambulance and they sent me home. And my mother called me because my mother believed I was just putting on an act. I hated her, but I was a good daughter because she was teaching me that a college education doesn't make you better.
Oh no.
Okay.
And I guess that's part of why when they didn't make you, when you got treated badly at work, maybe you accepted that because you've
That's
been
right. I
conditioned to
expected it.
accept. Yeah.
I
Right.
expected it. It was the way I was treated. But anyway, so she said to me, nobody did my garden. So I had a Valiant, which is a General Motors car. I always obeyed.
I thought you were gonna say Valium, and I was like,
No,
cool.
no,
This
Valiant.
turned around.
I took no pills. When they had me on a lot of medication at National Institutes of Health, and I stopped at cold turkey. I
Oh,
don't,
that's a terrible idea.
it is, but I don't believe in medication. I don't like it.
Because you wanted control, obviously. That would be the stopping the
Anorexics
medication.
always control. You're absolutely right. So I got in the Valiant, which is a General Motors car, and I drove to do my mother's garden.
Mm.
And I came back home and I still had controlled eating problems.
Yep.
I was still controlling my eating. Um, and when I drove, I can still remember this, and it's and I get a little emotional when I remember it because I was not a happy person.
Yep.
And I drove home after I did her fucking garden. I drove home and I pulled in behind a cement mixer. I now understand that I was too weak to step on the brake hard enough. But at that time, it didn't occur to me. I
Yep.
stepped on the brake and coasted into the cement mixer.
Right.
And I can remember, and I cannot tell you the relief and the happiness
Yep.
that flooded over me. I thought it's over. I'm done.
Right.
And my head hit the steering wheel, and I was so happy because I knew then I was dead. Because what she said to me was, you know, all your bones are going to break.
Yep.
And I waited around, and I thought, death doesn't. I shouldn't be feeling anything.
You got impatient. You got impatient in your own death. You
Nothing,
were like, can
nothing
we?
was happening. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get out of the car because I'm stopping the intersection. And I got out of the car,
Yeah.
and the front of the car, because in those days they made cars out of tin,
Right.
the car was totaled
Yeah.
because the cement mixer had backed into me. But
Right.
the cement mixer didn't even know that they'd hit a car.
Okay. Because
How
it's, yeah.
he had and I looked at it, and I had a bloody nose.
Right.
That's all I had.
Yep.
And I thought, and this, by the way, is not something I've made up. This is really what I said.
Yeah.
I said, well, you may not be much, but you're better than anything General Motors can make. I got it. I drove it home.
What,
And
hey, what a shame you said it to no one at the time.
yeah, but I did say that. And then I walked into the mobile home and I said, okay, it is obvious to me that the doctors can't figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. But remember, I'm the one that said, I have anorexia. I'm going to get rid of it. So this is very typical of the way I think.
I think that's a lot of it's a lot of, isn't that most of the problem is the people that go through massive change are the people that one believe they can and two decide to do it. Like there's never been someone that was like I was forced into rehab and then I turned it around.
No, no.
Mm.
But you have to stick to it.
Yeah.
You have to realize that there are perks to being sick.
Yeah.
People care for you. I read a book by a woman from Walnut Creek, and I wish I could remember the title of it, but if you look up anorexia, you could probably find it.
Yeah.
She had exactly what I had,
Yeah.
the periodic, but she had a mother that was so concerned and took her to 5 million doctors and took her
Right.
to all this, and she ended up dying. But I remember reading it and thinking, gee, that must have been so nice to have someone come and get you and care about you and say, you don't look good, or
Yeah.
can I hold your hand? I had none of that.
Yeah.
None of it.
But I wonder if there's some link in how, not in it, I wonder if there's some link in the fact that you were like, I'm going to turn this around.
I'm going to
And
turn it around.
that's your attitude for stand up as well. You're like, this room is mine. I'm going to do this because no one else is coming to help me, kind of thing.
That's right.
Mm.
I'm sure of it. You have to be from California to understand what it is to drive the approach to Pacifica. You come down a huge hill and it's on the ocean.
Right.
It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. You come down to this little town
Yep.
with this ocean and a half-mile dock out to the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's exquisite.
Yeah.
And I drove down this thing and I thought, yeah, I'm living here.
It's
And I
home.
walked into this house that was perfect.
Yep.
I still cannot believe it. It was perfect.
Yep.
It had everything I wanted. But it was a 3-bedroom house. And I remember saying, listen, it's just me and the dogs. And Julia said to me, you're going to fill it. And she's right. 97,000, we bought it.
Yep.
And that was the beginning of empowering me.
Right. Because you had something. You had a home.
And nobody could evict me. Well, actually, Wells Fargo did, but that was a long time.
Yeah.
So by that time I had the internet. It was 2003. And I was scrolling the net for comedy, for jokes.
Yep.
And I saw this thing that said San Francisco Comedy College. And I thought, that's a ripoff. You
Yeah.
can't get people to be funny.
Yep.
And I thought, maybe this is my big chance. I'll write an expose and I will expose this man for taking young people's money,
Yep.
never knowing that stand-up comedy was a career.
Right. Right.
No idea.
Yep.
Uh, and I'm going to finally get into the New York Times. So I called him up, and at those days you had message machines.
Yep. Yeah. Answering machine.
I called him up and I said, I'd like to write about you with two magazines and a newspaper. Would you, but I need to take the class. And he returned the call. His name is Curtis Matthews.
Yep.
He returned the call by right away.
Yep.
And he said, I just love small Jewish women. So I took the class. And I have to give him credit. He's a wonderful comedian, Curtis.
Yeah.
But I don't know how. I still don't think you can really teach being funny.
Yeah.
I have it. But he when I walked in that class, the first thing he said was, I can teach you nothing."
That is a really, well, in a way, it's always open with a joke. So that's a strong line from a teacher.
He's so sweet. He said, and I said, "Yes, you can. You can teach me what this thing is all about."
Yeah.
And he did. And he taught me about mic technique. He taught me about moving the stands. So
Yeah.
He taught me about the construction of a joke to make your own. He taught me about the rule of three.
Yeah.
He taught me about the need for surprise.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me that the audience is always right. This is hard for people.
Yeah.
It's not a bad audience. It's a bad joke.
Yeah.
He gave me the discipline I needed to, but anybody that says I've got anorexia, I'm going to get rid of it. I had the discipline.
Mm.
And I got up and had a final exam, and I took the final exam because, I had been a university lecturer. This did not scare me.
Yeah. Yep.
And the rest of the kids were 18, 19, and 20.
Right.
So I got up there and I told jokes.
Yep.
They didn't.
Yep.
So I was the star.
Right.
It wasn't that I was so good, honey.
Yeah.
It was that they were so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are running out of time, honey.
No, thank you. This has just been absolutely, thank you so much for the time that you've given me. It's been so interesting and it's been so nice to hear.
I can give you one more question.
All right. I will say then, very quickly, I'll say, what now would you find never stops exciting you?
Doing a gig.
I thought so.
I've been doing it now for 16 years.
Yeah.
It's always new, fresh, and exciting for me. But this kid came up to me after, and he asked me to sign his ticket. And I had been living alone since I was 26,
Yep.
27. Oh, 26. I've been living alone. And this kid looked at me with such love, and he said, "Sign my ticket." And I thought, oh, he loves me.
Yeah.
I didn't have to cook him dinner, and I didn't have to change the sheets.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
I did it again.
Wow.
And again and again and again. And I ran into sexism, ageism,
Yeah.
terrible prejudice.
Yep.
But remember, I had run into that all my life.
Yeah. Yep.
I had it at the university. I had it with my family.
Yeah.
I had it with my two husbands.
Right.
It's
So
a
now
way of-
now you're running into it to do something that you want to do. So it just
Yeah,
feels
but I'm
more
equipped.
bearable.
I'm equipped to battle it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And I need to make another comment before I let you leave me. It's knowing
Yeah.
and then doing it. It's saying, I have an eating disorder. I'm going to conquer it.
Yeah.
And then doing it.
Yeah, it's the before you admit to something, isn't it? That's the scariest bit, because there's no action you can take when you're in denial.
Yeah, and there's also, you're getting perks from being sick. You're getting perks from being helpless. You're getting perks from being unhappy.
Yeah.
I don't want those kind of perks. It's called what's real. What's real?
said, let's travel the world.
And she said, yeah. She said, let's fill it with music. And he said, yeah. He said, yeah. He said, everywhere is our home. And she said, yeah.
She said, we'll love everybody. And he said, yeah. Chorus. Oh my God, it's such a thrill. No more no's, just yes we will. We can do most anything when we do it all together. Together. He said, let's join a circus. She said, yeah.
I did. She
Said we'll make kids laugh.
and he said, yeah.
Did I? She said, let's fly to the moon. She said, yeah.
She said, let's make a rainbow. And
He said, yeah. Chorus.
oh my God, it's such a thrill. No more no, just yes we will.
We can do most anything when we do it all together. Together. Let's paint the walls with
Oh, let's paint the walls with sunshine.
sunshine,
Fill the place with flowers.
daisies,
Daffodils.
tulips.
Roses. I love roses.
What about the furniture?
Oh shit, I forgot.
Dancing. Oh my God, it's such a thrill. No one knows, just yes we will. We can do most anything
If we do it all.
if we do it all together.
Together.
Oh no more no's, just yes we will. We can do most anything when we do it all together. Together. Thank you.
Ah, that was fabulous. Written and performed by
Steve Gifford and Lynn Ruth, or Lynn Ruth and Steve Gifford, or Steve Gifford and Lynn Ruth.